The issue, the Calypso from Krokro, well, against Instant Ishmael. My guest, Calypsonian watchman, now PhD and attorney, working as an officer in the United Nations peacekeeping arrangements around the world. We're not sure exactly where he is as he speaks with us, but good to see you, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. I'm actually in Uganda.
Uganda. Yeah, I was saying Burundi or something like that, but you in Uganda, you in Kampala.
Yeah. Yes. I'm retired from the UN now, but I still perform investigative functions for them when required.
All right. So I listened to I listened to your piece looking at this Calypso, Krokro attacking Instant Ishmael. You say that there were some parts of it that were sort of acceptable. It goes with the territory of critical Calypso, but other parts you had a difficulty with, and you're saying that Krokro may have a challenge, a case on his hand, or vice versa. Instant Ishmael may have a ground to stand on if he goes to court. The part in which he's been named as somebody conducting business based on stolen car parts. Let's start with that.
Yes. Okay. I was looking at as a Calypsonian and as an attorney at law.
Right.
And some people may want to believe that I'm attacking Krokro per se. No, I am dealing with the issue that I was asked to answer with respect to defamation.
Yes.
And I have a good understanding of defamation, and I myself, during my years as a Calypsonian and a police officer, I have sued the Express, the Bomb, and the Mirror, and all those matters were settled in my favor. So the question to me was this. Number one, I was informed that Krokro was saying that he did not identify Instant Ishmael by name. Therefore, it wasn't that person he was speaking about, or nobody could assume it was that person. And I'm saying that's not the way the law works. Well, how the law works is that if from the circumstances of the case, a particular person could be identified, meaning that the class is so small that you could identify that it was relating to a particular person, then the reasonable man, the man on the East-West maxi taxi, if he believes that you're talking about a particular person, then that is the reasonable man test. And it does not matter whether you use the person's full name, you misspell the name deliberately or accidentally, or you use some sort of synonym, or even if you don't identify the person at all by name, but the circumstances of the communication shows that it is pointing at that person, then therefore the law will assume that it's that person.
Right, and your reference to the East-West corridor maxi taxi, it goes back to would you say the parent understanding of that, which is when the British law talks about the person in the Clapham omnibus, correct?
Yes, correct.
And therefore you're saying that is a soft spot in this matter for Krokro.
I'm saying that if you look at what is written on YouTube, and as it relates to the Calypso, it says Krokro addressing Instant Ishmael. So therefore, someone has already made a connection between the Calypso and the words of the Calypso and Instant Ishmael himself. And I am not holding any brief for Instant Ishmael. I'm aware that he has also himself made comments that lots of people found objectionable. And if I'm asked to comment on his statements, then that's a different issue. I'm asked to comment on the Calypso as a Calypsonian. So if in looking at it, you have to link what is being said in the Calypso. And under the law of defamation, you don't have to prove everything that you say. There are some things that could be considered to be fair comment. But there are things that if you say it, and in the mind of a rightful thinking person, a reasonable person, it lowers your opinion of that person, then that is defamation. If you recall, we had the case of a former prime minister versus Mr. Ken Gordon.
Yes.
And you remember what was said and how the law ended up dealing with that.
Yes.
And on the question of identification,
was it pseudo-racists?
Pseudo-racists, yes. And if you look at the other matter involving where the judge's wife,
yes, with
Patrick Chukulingo, so long ago, where it was supposed to be a fantasy story, but even though that case had more to deal with contempt than defamation, but it was the question of you don't have to call a person's name for the law to assume that you're referring to particular people. Yeah. So for me, in the Calypso, where the part of the Calypso that there's an issue, and I believe where the defamation or the threat of defamation will come in, is when Krokro says, even I just buy your stolen parts from in the bamboo. So you have a song where you're talking about Inshan, and there's such a person who has a business in the bamboo, selling car parts. That in itself, you can say two things. You can say that Krokro is also self-reporting because he is saying that he himself buys stolen car parts from the bamboo. I think it was just another very clever way to say the line. As a lawyer, I would say if you had said people or we just buy stolen car parts from the bamboo, then that could mean anything. And even though Mr. Ishmael has a business selling car parts in the bamboo, it cannot be said that that line defames him by saying we just buy stolen car parts in the bamboo, or even I just buy stolen car parts in the bamboo. But when you say I and your in a Calypso in which you are addressing a particular individual as another Satmaraj is outside again, that is where the trust of the defamation, I believe, is going to come.
Yeah, and when he talks about another Satmaraj, is he then suggesting that Satmaraj was, and if you link that reference to wrongdoing and to dealing in stolen goods, you're saying that Satmaraj, by extension, was involved in that, or that is, in a different reference to Satmaraj?
I think it's a different reference. I think that I can't know what is in the mind of Krokro, but in looking at the Calypso in itself and being a Calypsonian myself, I understand how we do things. As I said in my voice note, Satmaraj may be reviled among certain segments of the African population in Trinidad and Tobago, but at the same time, he's revered among certain segments of the East Indian population in Trinidad and Tobago. So therefore, when you say another Satmaraj is outside again, maybe what you're trying to infer, based on other Calypsos in which Satmaraj was mentioned by Krokro and by other Calypsonians as being presumably or supposedly, or from information, things that he have said, assumed to be a racist or have racist tendencies or racist overtones, then you might be inferring that Satmaraj was a racist and therefore Inshan or Ishmael or whatever identification is one of those. But the reference is not clear enough to say that Satmaraj is a racist because, or it is defamatory or demeaning or insulting to associate Inshan Ishmael with Satmaraj, because Satmaraj has an audience who believes that he was a well-meaning, well-intentioned, and honorable person. There are a lot of people who would say the opposite, but that, to me, is not defamatory or even demeaning or insulting to say that.
Yeah, and there's another connection with the references. The suggestion is that Satmaraj, among his many sort of personalities and the wide platform of his personae, the position was that, so he was someone in the Indian community who was seen to be vocally opposed to and against much of the stuff that PNM governments in power was engaged in. And so he's saying that Inshan has taken that place in that respect as well.
Yeah, which, if that's the case, it's not demeaning, it's not defamatory, it's just fair comment and objective statement being made as to how you see the person's interaction. There are those who went so far as to say that Satmaraj was against the African population in Trinidad and Tobago, and some of the statements that he has made. Those inferences were made and came across in many calypsos by many calypsonians over the years. And that in itself, for some people, would mean that he was not a good person, but you can't make that interpretation except from the prisoner of your own thinking, or the thinking of your particular group.
Yeah. I want to come to sort of your circumstances then, in which you said that you had cause to take people to court for what they said about you in relation to some of your lyrics over the years.
Well, not lyrics.
Yeah.
Not lyrics. It was to do with some of my actions as an individual, or what they wrongly presume to be my actions. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
The Express printed an editorial in which they were talking about me as a person being critical of certain things when I led the police officers on a illegal march around the parliament in an unparalleled show of ill discipline. When in fact, I was not even there, did not even know that it was taking place. I was actually up at law school attending classes when it happened. But because I was the president of the Social and Welfare Association and was engaged in our association activities and was supposed to be there that morning when the commissioner had come, was supposed to return off leave, but there was no plan to march. Some people got excited and did something proactively and reactively at that time, and it had nothing to do with me. I was blamed, and the editor did not check the facts. And because after the matter came out, I told my other members, okay, keep quiet. Since I was the one who was not involved, let me speak. but that was interpreted wrongly as if I was involved.
Yeah.
Of course, the error was seen and it was settled financially.
Yeah, so it was settled out of court. You didn't have to go to court per se.
Right. And then there's the other one when Morgan Job, as a reporter or writer in the Bomb newspaper, coming out of the march and our activities in terms of refusing government's offer and taking certain actions in support of the police, made a statement in the Bomb that me and another colleague of mine, that we were plotting a coup, which is a very serious allegation to make. And of course, I sued, and that was also settled.
Yeah, I want to ask you about, you had a calypso one year in which the lyrics were sort of in the area of saying that, well, I think you used the term that people should use the former Prime Minister at the time, A.N.R. Robinson, for target practice. I want to put that in the context of where poetic license ends and where sort of personal offense begins.
Okay. And you're right that sometimes the things we say and we sing, we skirt the line between what is acceptable and not so acceptable. But that's a difference between legal and illegal. It's not the same thing, because you may say something that is totally legal to say, but it might be something that, given second thoughts, you would not have said it that way. And I myself have said things in my calypsos in the past that I wondered to myself and aloud whether I could have found a more artful way of saying it. That line, or that particular line, came from the fact that I was on Federal Street and hearing some people talking about the problems that our fishermen were having with Venezuelan authorities, who were arresting them, stealing their property, imprisoning them, and so on. And somebody said, if Robbie and them were down there, and they were facing what the fishermen facing, and they were shooting at them, I bet you we'd do something about it and deal with the Venezuelans. And I said to myself, wow, now that's a line. So on that, and in the song I said, because of the problems we have in the government, some fishermen say they know how to get rid of the whole gang. They say to take Robbie and the party, put them in a boat, take them up to Citrus and let the buggers float. Put a bullseye mark on their chest, and then the Venezuelan Coast Guard could do the rest. So you see, I took what they said and I brought it across into the calypso in almost the same way that they said it. But of course, since I'm the singer, it comes across as if I am saying that. But that's not the only time that I said words to that effect that express people's disappointment or people's regret or things about the government. In Airborne 1, when I was saying that I see while workers marching on below, Robinson was peeping out his window. But if I was only Japanese, I'd take people out that squeeze. I'd divert this plane. That's Airborne 1, man. Take a good aim, and vadam bam, no Robbie again. All of those lyrics skirt the line of what is acceptable and not acceptable. And they were never removed from my calypso, and people loved the line, and it went across very well all the time. And the other times I've said things that insulted people, or they might have felt insulted because I was always clever enough to to put it in a way that made it almost untouchable, even though you know that you are being touched, you know.
Right, and sometimes it has the same effect on the mind of the ordinary person. But you were knowingly going as close to the line as it would have been possible.
Right, yeah, and that's to tell you that sometimes in Calypso you might hear different singers say the same thing and say it in different ways. There are Calypsonians, Chogdas in particular, you know, Luther, Calypsonians of my era who said things that you know what they were saying and you know what the implication is, but they even had a softer way to say it than what I will call the roughneck boys of Calypso, myself, Crocro, and Aloes. So we had a rougher style. But to give you an example, there was an incident allegedly involving Pamela Nicholson from Tobago.
Yes.
And Aloes basically used the alleged incident, if it ever took place. There's no way you could know whether it took place or not. And it was something personal and private. And he used it in a different way to I used it, the way I used it. You know, I used it in a way that had a two-way or three-way meaning. His was more direct. I'm not criticizing him. All Calypsonians and singers have their own way to address their issues. And even Crocro has sang Calypso that I found very funny and very clever and very dangerous, even if I did not like it, but I liked the way it was put. And I would say, that is something else. That is good, man.
Yeah.
Even though I may not be in favor of the sentiment being expressed.
Yeah, I want to tell you, he's been my friend. We were in different high schools in parts of deep south in Trinidad and Tobago. He's been my friend since then, since he was a cyclist. A lot of people don't know he was a cyclist, and he left that to go in the Calypso to come into town. We came into town almost at the same time, in the same year, because we thought that our fortunes lay here. But I was included in a Calypso he sang in 2011, in which he called people like me who went to work for the government of that day, lick bottom some things and so on. I never held it against him, but a lot of people thought it was offensive, but I never held it against him because of the depth of our friendship.
Right. And that's another point I was making in my voice notes, which, as you know, you don't know, those voice notes started just for the police, on the police chat groups I'm a member of, and then it started to spread, and it was basically more dealing with things that relating to the police. But I was saying that sometimes you may say things that a person realize you made a mistake. You said something wrong, but they don't go after you. They leave it alone, and a lot of things was said about Mr. Robinson, Mr. Pandey,
Mr. Manning.
Extent, Mr. Manning. I said some things about Mr. Manning that some people were offended by when I said, for example, I said that that he took money and he fixed over the Prime Minister's residence and so on. So go and search by Manning. I hear that he have the money hideaway, but but his bedroom don't need no searching, no checking, because reports say that nothing will happen there. And there were some people who got very offended. And I've always felt that the time of my least influence was when PNM was in power, because I had a feeling a lot of the judges, their mindset generally lean more in favor Right.
All right.
Which was different, so I pay the price.
Yeah. All right. We got to go, but let me just get a quick response to you from you on this one. So, what would be a general comment you have about the state of the art and the art form in 2023?
It is dying. The political and social commentary is dying because people, maybe because of the woke culture, people are finding it, they don't want to offend anybody. And the things that was said for us by people like Rasho T.I. and Sparrow and Chogdas and Valentino, and these stalwarts who would sing and sing truth to power is no longer available. People are just doing cliches now, and it does not sound the same way. I think that what they should do is go back and listen to some of the calypso. Gypsy had a calypso a couple of years ago in which she was saying you can't please everybody. No matter what you did, somebody will be offended. So I think that is true. And we should go back and get back the meaning of the art form and let the young singers understanding now that it's a woke culture and things might be a little different, but there's still room out there. I don't want to sound like if I'm knocking the younger folks, but I was listening and I wasn't finding anything like the Boaman or Kurt Allen. They're too bright, and the things that made me sit up and say, "Oh, Pink Panther misprint."
The cleverness,
that made you
cleverness of the art form is not there anymore.
That is not, but because of the withdrawal of patronage by certain groups from the Calypso tent, you don't have that time to build the platform that we used before we reached to the marshcraft.
All right, we're gonna have to leave it there. Thank you very much, my friend. Attorney at law, Calypsonian, former international public servant, Wayne Haid, PhD. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Watchman. Well, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
I'm Andre Elbertis, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close it down.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, We Entertainment, Sports, and News. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
The train company operating the trains in Greece. They were very angry, but they stood silent and peacefully. They were carrying a large piece of black cloth in honor, in memory of the victims and their families. And the chant was very much, I'll call you when I get there, which is very much something that every kid really felt, in Greece. I'll call you mom, I'll call you dad when I get there. Well, these kids never made it there. And that's very much where all the kids here can feel. Further tonight, we'll also have another at 7 p.m. Another protest is going to take place where the opposition party, Syriza, is also going to join in. And everyone is really calling for a transparent investigation, and quick to that has been the answer of the authorities, at least with appointing a 3-member committee, an expert committee, to kind of look at what the malfunctions were, what actually led to this human error, and if there was a human error, which everything so far points to that, why weren't the safeguards in place? Wasn't the technology in place to protect the passengers from such a fatal and horrific end?
Natalie, our viewers are seeing live images right now of funerals being held for the victims. And from what I understand, there are still family members that are waiting for victims' remains to be removed from the scene. What can you tell us the latest from the rescue operations?
Well, the firefighters are concluding. They're in charge of this entire operation of sifting through, of collecting the bodies, the charred bodies, or the members, or anything actually that can find anything that will allow the experts in the labs to conduct the DNA tests to kind of figure out, the victims' names, who actually died, and that's been an extremely painful process, even for the rescuers, who have been absolutely traumatized, saying that, every piece of body they could find was actually one of their own child, that would remind them of their own children. It's an extremely painful for all of the country, and they're expected to conclude the